are live. Yes, we are. Hello, hello, everyone. Hi, my name is Reverend Evelyn, and welcome to the Sacred Creative Soul Speaks Live. I see people coming in. Thank you so much for joining. Today, I have a beautiful guest, Empress Theodora, and we are just going to be having a beautiful, free-flowing conversation. The theme that I chose is the joy of being, because I sort of got that vibe from her publication, but we're just going to talk about lots of things. And so I'm going to give it just a few seconds, and then I'm going to get us into an invocation, and then we'll get started.
Okay.
So I see Lakeisha, High Priestess, has joined us.
Hi, friend.
Jenny, Brandy, Jamma, welcome, welcome. Early birds, thank you so much for being here. I don't know who else is here. Yeah, thank you. So, yes. So I don't think I've ever done a live on a Saturday afternoon, so this will be fun. Um, a dope black girl with anxiety. Welcome. I love that name.
Right.
All right. So let's get started. I am going to do a little breath and then a little invocation. So I'm getting my feet flat on the floor. And I'm just going to invite us to just breathe and just to bring ourselves from, as one of my teachers likes to say, from getting here to being here. So breathing, knowing that the breath is the vehicle for spirit. And so I breathe. And I invite the presence of spirit, knowing that there is only one, that each of us is inextricably connected to the other. So I invite spirit to be with us on this beautiful afternoon. Some places it's storming. And so knowing that everyone is safe, knowing that everyone has a comfortable spot to sit and listen and participate if they feel called. And I invite spirit to inspire this conversation and to just be with us, to guide us, and just fill each one of us with love and compassion. With so much going on in this world right now, joy is a beautiful antidote to fear. And so I release this word into the perfect law. I allow it to be so, and so it is. All righty. So welcome, everyone. Welcome anyone who joined while I was doing the invocation. So we're gonna get started. I've set an intention. It is my intention that the viewers who are joining live or watching the replay would be able to get in touch with what brings them joy. So that's my intention for this live. So so welcome, Empress Theodora. I don't know when it was. I think it was probably last year. I encountered one of your voice notes and I listened to it. And I was just like, wow, I would love to have a conversation with this person. And here we are. So welcome. And would you like to introduce yourself and just tell the viewers about who you are and about your publication?
Yeah. Actually, I remember that moment because I remember you doing your own voice note, and I was so
Hmm.
excited. I was like, okay, she did a
I never
voice
knew about
note.
that feature. So I
Yeah.
thought, oh, let me try it.
So I am Empress Theodora, and I am the host and creator of The Mediocre Black Woman. And wow, I don't even know where to start sometimes about that. But I started it in a place where I was traveling. And I had just witnessed my friend's bridal shower, and I was thinking about some of the work that I did at work, and my previous job, and, I just remember being so tired, so frustrated, and having gone to a bridal shower, I was thinking to myself, "This is what life is about, celebrating your friends, celebrating your loved ones, being in joy," And, before that, back in 2018, my best friend had passed away, and something that always played in my mind was that her seat is gonna be filled at work by somebody because the job keeps moving, the goalpost keeps moving, right? Like things keep going on. And sitting in that diner, it was kind of like a culmination of all of those moments. And I was just like,
Mhm.
you know what? I'm tired of being excellent. I wanna be mediocre, and this is obviously also on the heels of everything that was starting to unfold that I knew was going to unfold, and I knew we were gonna need a place for Black women come 2025, 2026, and beyond, just with everything that's been happening, and so, yeah, I wrote in my journal, like, "I'm gonna be mediocre moving forward," and scene, you know? And that's when it started, so my goal is to remind Black women that, yes, we're divine, but we're also dragged, and when we say dragged and divine, we mean that we are human, but we're also divine in that humanity, and if we did another thing, or not another thing, we would still be loved, we would still be enough, we would still be acceptable and joy-filled, and that is who we are, right? Even in our worst times, we drip joy, we drip honey, we drip sweetness, softness, like, we are the prototype, so
Yeah.
that's what that space celebrates.
I love that, I love that. 'Cause I often wondered whenever I would see your publication come across, and I think, "I wonder what's the story behind that?" And now that you speak it, it really, clarifies for me, because as another Black woman, I feel that pressure of always feeling that whole Black excellence thing,
Yes.
which is very, very tiring. It's exhausting, and, I often find myself as the only Black person in a fill in the blank, and that pressure to, as my grandmother would say, you know, "Don't embarrass me in public," things like that.
In front of these
Um,
people.
it's kinda
Yeah.
like you're representing your and it's like it's this heavy burden, right?
Mhm.
It's, the pressure to be fabulous,
Sure.
and, I am someone's, publication name just went by that said the awkward Black girl with anxiety. That's me. I'm the awkward. I'm the one who says the inappropriate thing, and Black excellence seems to be a far way off for me. So, I love that your willingness to not only embrace it, but to invite other people to embrace, um, and be free. There's so much freedom in saying, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and be mediocre because I'm tired of being exhausted. I'm tired of um, holding up half of the earth, so yeah, I love that. I love that. So so what inspired you then? I mean, so all of that came together and then you started writing on Substack. So how did the beginning parts of your journey in getting your publication going on Substack specifically, how did that go for you?
It was like lightning speed. My friend had mentioned the platform. So, you know what? I'm glad that you asked this question because I was thinking about this actually the other day. So sometimes, right, we come on these platforms, and I want to say this so everybody is listening will hear this, right, and
Yep.
internalize it. But I, before Substack was on, I have been podcasting probably for since I think 2021, 2020. And, it hadn't really like popped. It hadn't really, but I've been doing a lot of work for
Mhm.
a long time
Yep.
before getting to this point. And so I
Yep.
share that because, the bamboo plant, it grows underground for 5 years
I do.
before it
Yep.
breaks the surface and everybody gets to see it. So, like, when I came to Substack, it was like if what it felt like to me, it felt like overnight, but it wasn't really overnight. I've been doing the work, right? So I had experience in setting up multiple podcasts. I had podcasts at my past job, and then I had a podcast. I had what 4 or 5 different personal podcasts, right? So it wasn't like a whole lot of friction to setting it up because the idea was very clear. Um, Ideas don't always come that clear for those who
Yep.
get ideas, right?
Yep.
It was just like, "This is what you're doing, this is what you're creating, and this is the message," and I was like, "Wow, okay." So, my friend had told me about Substack, I think, like, the month prior, and I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna make a move over there and see what it's about," and so, I believe that I opened my account on December 9th. put my first post up on December 13th, and then put my first podcast episode out on December 20th. So it was pretty fast because I came back from that bridal shower mid-December as well. So it was a quick transition, right?
Mhm.
And it was a great one because I got rid of Instagram, I got rid of TikTok after a while, all those Facebook, everything, and just focused on Substack. And that alone shifted my mental health. I was worried at first because we want to be in all the places and spaces,
Mhm.
but some places and spaces are not for us, especially with what the work was that I was trying to do. I've learned that I'm a long form creator. I'm not somebody that you kinda dip into and then
Right.
you're like, "You get it." No, you won't get it by just coming to one thing. I'm an acquired taste that develops over the long term. Like, some people don't like
Mm.
red wine. I'm the red wine. Like, it develops over time, and then
Mhm.
you're like, "Ooh, this is pretty good. What else can I pair with this? What else she got?"
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
I
"Can I
love
put the
that.
crackers? Can I put the cheese?" So I've learned to, like, this is who I am. This is what I have to offer. And creating that, I kept that in mind. So I was like, okay, this is supposed to be fun. This is supposed to be liberating. This is supposed to be good catharsis for all of us. And so I just started it from that place.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. So you said that it popped right away. Was it, a lot of people come to Substack. So I also sort of dip in and out of a Reddit, a subreddit for Substack. And one of the common themes for people is they pop in and they say, I've been on Substack for 3 weeks. And, you know, then they have a sob story. Um, I found that Substack for me, was a kind of a slow burn. Like my stats were like, like very slow. Some people will show you like a big, mine
Yeah.
was slow, very slow but steady and consistent growth. But in the beginning, like the first 3 months, you kind of like, was this a good idea? Like, at least for me, I
Mm.
thought, wow, I thought this would be faster. So how was it for
Oh,
you? Um,
that's interesting. I guess like it's so funny you say that because like for a long time I was even before the mediocre black woman, I had a podcast or a like brand called the Goddesshood podcast and everything. And, um, I was writing on Patreon and nobody was hearing me. I love like, I write for the joy of writing. I create podcast episodes for the joy of, like, connecting with people. That podcast was, like, me and guests. So, I don't know, in the beginning, because I knew that spirit had called me to do it, I wasn't really I mean, of course, you want people to consume your content, right? You want
mhm,
them to be a part of your community, but because I was getting more of the community, which is what I really wanted, like I had maybe 2 or 3 people that were starting to check in with me right away, and that I liked their content, they liked my content. We were like, collaborating. We saw that there was alignment. So I don't know. I was just having fun. I'll just put it like that. Like I was really enjoying like the community aspect, which I
mhm,
feel like I was putting so much out on Instagram and TikTok, all these other places, but not getting community. And
yeah,
for me, like that's the vein of everything that I do.
yeah,
And so to put stuff out there, but to not have dialogues or people to talk about things with, it just didn't really make sense. But on Substack right away, like I saw people with like-minded, platforms like Black Women Get to Be, like Black Girl Burnout. Like there was a lot of synergy between some of these communities. And so I immediately started connecting with people. And I think that's what excited me about Substack. It was not a slow burn. The name really challenges people, the mediocre black woman. Um, it really challenges people. Like I've had guests that have told me, I saw your name and I was like, "What?" And then I listened to what you had to say, and then I was
mhm,
like, "Oh, I get it." So, yeah, it wasn't a slow burn in that way because of the naming convention for sure, but it was steady. Like, it popped, but it
good,
was, like, consistent growth over time, if that
mhm,
makes sense.
yep,
Um, but it was faster than any other platform that I had been on. So, I think if that answers your question, I
yeah,
don't know.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit. Let's shift a little bit and talk really about your message. And one of the lines from I guess it's your marketing statement, like in the beginning of when you first are going to sign up. There's something about joy of being in there, and I thought I love that. So let's talk a little bit about. Because I mean, as I said in the beginning, and as everybody knows, we're in a very weird little place in time and in history right now. And there's a lot of anxiety, a lot of angst, a lot of fear. And then on top of that, this bizarre weather event that's supposed to be happening in a couple of hours. And so can you speak to how do you talk about joy? What is joy of being mean to you, and how do you talk about that?
Yeah, well, I know the line that you're talking about is the joy of being rest, mess, and all. Like that's the,
Yeah.
the line. It's like little moments, right? So I know that not everybody has the ability to do this because I was in a space at one point where I was living in a house with people and persons that I had to walk on eggshells with.
Hmm.
But even still, in living in homes where I had to walk on eggshells around folks or the news was playing and there's stuff that's stressing me out, my biggest goal has always been to cultivate my home space, you know?
Mm.
So like you saw me setting up right now. I got my
Yep.
I got my candle and my
Yep.
my water's over there. Oh,
Yep.
my water's over here and over there. But I got my candle.
Yep.
Got my artwork behind me.
Yep.
My bedroom is set up in a way that's conducive. Actually, one of my coworkers was laughing at me. I was telling her sometimes I sleep with a piece of petrified wood. It's like a wood that mineralizes over
Hmm.
time.
Hmm.
I have my sleep mask. I have like my space feels good, right?
Beautiful.
But I know that's not possible for everybody because of where you're at. So if there's
Right.
like one little corner of your house, if there's something that you can put there, like maybe it's a pot of flowers and you look at it and you know, okay, that's joyful. That makes me happy. Like my environment doesn't, show what I want it to look like on the inside. Like the inside doesn't match the outside, but I have that thing that I could set my eye on that makes me feel joy when I look at it. Because joy is internal. It's really not necessarily about your environment, but it starts with the environment. It starts with
Right.
cultivating who's in your energy, what's in your energy, and how you set that up, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Your environment really can have a huge. I was just talking to my sister about this morning, how your environment can affect, um, all these things. But I was talking to her about um, nervous system stuff because she and I both have ADHD.
Mhm.
Um, like we have like super ADHD. Um, and we both were diagnosed later in life. The same, it seems to be a
That's common
thing.
for us, yes.
Yeah. So we call each other like, is this happening to you? But so we were talking about, she's living in a physical location that's not working for her. Excuse me. So I was talking to her about nervous system stuff and about how, um, you can use your nervous system. You can regulate your nervous system to help cultivate that sense of safety. Even when I said, put people in a prison cell can
Mhm.
cultivate a sense of safety, right? So they don't have any candles, they don't have any incense, they don't have any soft pillows, they don't have an eye
Okay.
mask, they don't have any of that. But they can sit on that 3/4 of an inch thick mattress and they can cultivate safety.
They
And
can.
so, as you said, joy is on the inside. Joy is in here. And so I was talking to her about, I said, really, if you think about, you don't like the house you're living in, you don't like the neighborhood that you're living in. And right now she's dealing with weight issues, as she and I both always do. And you're not even really, not that you don't like the body that you're in, you're not sort of satisfied with where she is in this moment. But I said, in this very second, you're alive, you're breathing.
Mm.
I don't see anyone chasing you with a shotgun, right? And
Mm.
I also don't see the house burning down around you, right? So in this
Mm.
moment, you can find, and this is not like spiritual bypass. This is just like
No, but it's the truth,
dipping
yeah.
into reality, like the reality of where your body is in this moment, to just find, to sort of communicate to the body. You can put the guard down, you can breathe and just cultivate that sense of, first safety. You have to cultivate a sense of safety, I think, before you can really access the joy. Joy, I feel like, is maybe on the other side of cultivating that sense of safety. Maybe you can, maybe those aren't mutually exclusive, but to me, I feel like, for me, I feel like it would be challenging to feel genuine joy if I didn't feel safe.
Mm,
Um, so yeah, it doesn't matter if you don't have the candles and all that stuff, that you can find a sense of joy, wherever you find yourself in the moment.
mm. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. You know, it's interesting. I like that you brought up nervous system stuff because for a lot of us, like, our bodies haven't our bodies are primal, right? And so some of the things that we deal with that are psychological stressors are not things that our, modern ways of life have like, our modern ways of life haven't caught up with, or our primal bodies haven't caught up with our modern ways of life. So things that from to your point, you're not being chased, you're not being hunted, you're not, things that our nervous system is actually taught to really respond to actually keep us safe is constantly running in the background, right? So yeah, it's really interesting that you brought that up. So our modern ways do affect our nervous system a lot and how we are always on.
Yeah, I mean, we're not wired, at least I should say, I don't know, I don't believe we're wired to be able to watch someone be killed on the screen. And like, uh, I am very sensitive, and I saw a video, and I wasn't really, so I've always, okay, I'm gonna finish a sentence. I'm gonna finish a sentence. A few years ago, maybe about 10 or so years ago, I kept seeing this thing, trigger warning. I was like, what does that mean? Trigger warning. So I looked it up. Like, what does that mean? Where, someone would say, okay, in this essay, we're going to talk about we're going to talk about that. So just so you can take care of yourself. And I go, oh, I love that.
Mhm.
So I was watching a video on Substack, and I, no trigger warning, and unprepared for what I was going to see. And I was just like, I was gobsmacked, and I was shocked. And so my our nervous systems are not designed to just watch someone be unalived on the screen in front of us and, oh, okay, now I'm going to go make a cup of tea. No. So I was just like, in this world that we're living in, I mean, I just was watching the footage at the Minneapolis, Minnesota airport, where the clergy are being arrested because they're protesting ICE. They had those little rubberized mats that you used in the garden so you can kneel down without crushing your knees. So it's 11 degrees outside, and they are on their knees singing. The clip that I saw, they were singing Amazing Grace. And the ICE people are just coming up and grabbing them by their elbows and hoisting them up and carrying them off and arresting them. Because they are fighting for freedom, for this country and to protect their fellow citizens. Um, so in that kind of a environment that we're in, I think it's easy to just walk around triggered all the time. And one thing that I really appreciate about learning about this nervous system stuff is that, um, so I see that happening, and I can pray for those people. I can know the best for them, and then sort of remind myself that I am indeed in this moment in time safe, and then do whatever I can to help, to support whatever those things that are happening.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, it's joy, preserving joy, um, in an environment that we're in right now it's vital work.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's about being in your body, but it feels out of body, right?
Hmm.
Because
Hmm.
like I see so much stuff happening around me, but the amounts of joy and amounts of things that have just shifted in my life, it's so like I call it like it's an out of body experience. That's the best way I can
Hmm.
describe it.
Hmm.
Because you see all these things happening, but then you're still experiencing this whole other it's not even a different reality, but these whole other things that's just totally juxtaposed to what's happening, you know? Um, and so, yeah, we have to stay in our bodies while dealing with these things and limiting our, sometimes our intake of these more sensitive
Yes.
materials, you know? Since I started doing some of that nervous system work and more of that spiritual work, um, I can't watch some of the things that I even have watched before, you
Yeah.
know? And I feel like that's a cue that your nervous system is definitely leveling out. And I know that
Hmm.
one of the biggest strategies that these folks have is to keep us disconnected from ourselves
Yes.
because that in turn keeps us disconnected from each other.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The sort of reign of terror, while it is affecting other specific people, it is having the effect of creating fear, spreading fear widely, even though there are only certain people are impacted because um, there's this sort of simmering notion that you're next. You
Mhm.
are next.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's this show, I'm not gonna tell y'all to go watch it,
Hmm.
but if you I think it breaks down what's happening very well, there's 2 of them, but the one that's popping in my mind right now is this show on, I think it's on Hulu or Netflix maybe, but it's called Evil. I don't think I could watch it now, but it's called Evil, and it's essentially about, there's this priest and there's this psychologist and this tech guy, right? And they work together to find spirits and like decide if they're going to do exorcisms or not
Hmm.
on, right? And there's this like coven of demons that are infiltrating, right, society, and their specific work that they do at their companies is to control the media and to control people and to spread as much fear as possible.
Mm.
And so I know, like, I love shows because I feel like it tells you they give you insight so you can think about how you're structuring yourself, but that's literally what they get paid off of is fear in this show,
Yeah.
and will drive people to do crazy things, right? And so, they spread evil, literally the name of the show. And then there's another show, it's called The Good Fight. It was a spinoff of The Good Wife back in the day, and, again, it was during the 2016, elections when that show was really, like, popular, and again, spreading fear through campaigns, and one of the main characters just kept going through all these fear inciting
Hmm.
ads, shows, like, it was, like, really infiltrating her psyche. She was kinda losing it here and there, and so, again, these people get paid off of fear. They get paid to make you think that people are feeling worse than they are. People should be afraid. They should be bolting their doors, locking their doors. A lot of us probably felt like that early on with a lot of stuff that was going on. So
Hmm.
it is important to cultivate a baseline, you know?
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, yeah. Cultivating fear is very, very effective because fear is a super low vibration. It
Mhm.
is a super low vibe. And when people are fear focused, coming in the door, slamming the door, locking the door, shoving a chair up on the doorknob, and then, um, it narrows your vision, right? It gives you tunnel vision where all you're thinking about is outrunning the boogeyman, whoever that boogeyman, whatever form it might take, right?
Yeah.
But when you're living in fear like that,
Mhm.
then you're not being resourceful.
You're
You're
not.
not you're not pursuing your potential. You're not um sowing into the lives of the people around you, right? You're just focused on your little, and so that's why I believe fear is such an effective tool for controlling people is because, no one's going to bloom and expand in a state of fear. So
Yes.
I feel like this nervous system work is really um in so many ways a form of protection because when you regulate your nervous system, you can't help but be on a higher vibration.
Yeah.
And when you're in a higher vibration, you have access to that, that power and strength that's within. And it gives you access to resources and ideas and energy and all of that that you wouldn't have when you're huddled in a corner.
Exactly.
Um,
Exactly.
yeah. So, yeah, I'm going to be writing more about this nervous system work because it's just, I think, especially for Black people, just because we just have this, as we were talking about earlier with the Black excellence thing, I sort of feel like a lot of Black people have this legacy of fear and of mistrust, and which is it definitely, we come by it honestly. Let's just be clear. It's not made up, but it's up to each of us to decide whether we're going to buy into it and perpetuate it.
Mhm.
And so yeah, I think that cultivating that inner sense of safety, that being resourced from within instead of looking outward to see like who's going to help me, who's going to save me, right? It's strength and it's power.
Yeah. I mean, I call it our God intelligence,
Yeah.
when you're resourced, you can hear, you can hear what you're being advised to do, what you're being guided to do.
Hmm.
But when you're not resourced, it's really hard to focus on that. And you're right, we're not making this stuff up, Black
Right.
folks. I understand. Um, I actually was talking about this on another live with someone. It's really sad, like, that, overall, as especially as Black Americans, that this is our lived reality or this is our view of who we are because of all the things that we've been through. And, I part of my work around spirituality, around joy, around personal work has been to find spiritual systems, religions, and things like that that actually focus on us in the before times, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
Before we were enslaved and the horrors, the travesties. Not that they don't help, but there's some religions that are rooted in our survival of that, right? And so, and some practices that are rooted in that survival. And so part of my work has been finding the things and the systems that actually lift us up from who we really are.
Mm.
Um, I don't know if you guys remember at the beginning, I said that we are the prototype, as Black
Hmm.
folks, Black women, Black men,
Yep.
um, Black folks, period, non-binary, everybody. Okay.
Yep. Everybody.
um, and we are the prototype. So that's something that I replay internally over and over again when I think about what people try to make me believe about myself, because again, when you believe certain things, when you're not resourced, you act contrary to who you are. And so I don't know. I wish for us to find the joy in who we were before and
Hmm.
investigate that too, not just what we've been through now and how we've gotten to where we are today, but the before times, as I call it.
Yeah. So what are you can you say more about that? Because I mean, I was raised by parents who talked about Africa, about how, I mean, they told us about, how we came to be in this country, about, the Atlantic slave trade and all that. And I grew up in the Boston area. And so at that time, a lot of African countries were sending their brightest people to the US to attend universities because their universities were being developed. And so they would come to this country, get an education, and then go back. So we had several friends who were living in this country to get their advanced degrees. They're going to go back and then teach in their country.
Mhm.
And so we were exposed to lots of Africans from Africa. Like
Yeah.
we had a Nigerian family living in our house, and I had my first taste of jollof rice as a child, and I want to go back. And anyway, whenever it was so terrible because once we got a taste of her cooking when they left, I was like, please don't go. But really got gained beautiful exposure to like African culture and African people, and they were, pouring into us. I'm one of four kids, and just that pride of, this is what we come from, because from being in a culture where that the white people are looking down on you, to be in a room full of people who know who they are and are proud of their culture. The first time when I saw Roots for the first time, I was mortified, because like I think that's pretty much was everyone's sort of first live action view of what, the enslaved people experienced. Um so to think back, like all the way back to the very beginning, when that Kunta Kinte character was rustling through the woods and just like living his happy life and doing things, and then was stolen. um I think about the people, because co- um colonialism didn't just affect, I should say, enslavement didn't just affect the people who were stolen, it also affected people who were left behind. And so I sort of think, and another movie that really made me think was The Woman King, um about that whole, that's a lot of violence, but still there was a time and a place where Black people, where African people could just be people. They weren't Black people, they were just people living lives and having their traditional modes of worship and their traditional um experiences, and not being diminished and not being othered. I have not been to the continent yet. I have a cousin who lives in the Gambia. She's over there teaching at a university, but I would love to get just put my feet on that soil and meet people and just walk around um on the continent, on the homeland.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, and, where I'm from California originally, and,
Hmm.
um, where I was living, there was a lot of different folks from West Africa, so the Congo, Ivory Coast. Actually, I was married to someone from Cote d'Ivoire, and, from the Congo, Ivory Coast, Chad, like everywhere, right? From West Africa. And yeah, it's a different sense of pride, different sense of, um, culture, of richness, of belief, Um, yeah. You were starting to ask a question, but I
Yeah,
what
so
was your question?
I guess I'm starting to ask about how do you access, because you talk about the before times.
Yeah.
I know that I had a friend who was starting to get involved in IFA, and then
Wow.
she was greatly discouraged because
Oh.
that's like demon worship. That's, you know, and I was like, wait a second, but isn't that what the white people are calling? I mean, like, how did thousands of years of humans anyway, so can you sort of speak to like
Okay.
how do you access um sort of traditional African, and I say African knowing that it's a continent, that you know it's a vast variety, but I mean, how do you access that
Okay, so that's the
those
question. I was like,
values? Yeah.
um, hmm, that's a tough one because so, okay, I'll give you some context, I guess, too. Like, when I was always a seeker, like, even when I
Mhm.
was a kid, so I wasn't forced to go to church or to, anything like that, but I always asked to go, so I would go to other people's families, I would go, like, to youth, I would have them drop me places and do my name means a gift from God, so I feel like I was always seeking God.
Mhm.
And, I remember growing up, then, becoming an adult and trying to find my path. And, I was in multiple different churches at any given time, studying, trying to learn more, trying to understand, trying to find myself
Mhm.
in Christianity, in the Bible, like trying to make the connection, and trying to think for myself, if that makes sense, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
so I think the first step is to think for yourself, is to decide, I'm not saying to stop doing one thing or another,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
look at the roots of where some of these things come from, right? And how they were introduced to our communities, to our culture, to us as a people. The violence associated, right?
Mhm.
Because if something is so great, which I still believe it is, I just again, my godfather told me, he's like, "Are you bitter with Christians?" And I was like, or with Christianity? I was like, "No, I'm just with Christians sometimes." And so I think that the most important thing is to find things out for yourself, to
Mm.
think for yourself critically, to open yourself up, but to be able to question things. And if you can come to a space where you can't question things, or you're demonized for questioning things, then you need to go investigate outside of that space and get your answers
Exactly.
met. Don't just stop at, I believe this because I believe this. Like, go further, dig deeper, understand the history. So I would say that if we look at history, and you can find most things in a book. Not gonna
Mhm.
find it online. You can find it
Yep.
at the library. You can
Yep.
find it in archives. You can find it so it all starts in books because that's where they be hiding stuff, because
Yep.
people, we don't be looking there.
Yep.
So things start in books, right? So it starts with history. So if you look at how things happened, actually, I was watching a show and it triggered me to buy this book. And the book is about the Great Migration, right? So it's
Mm.
like
Mhm.
paying attention, being open, and reading, right? So
Yep.
figuring out what happened in history. That will tell you a lot of things that you need to know about spirituality because they do go together in religion and stuff, right? So
Yep.
I would start there. I would start with history, but really having a critical thought process because that
Yep.
is what we have been disconnected from. If I
Yep.
can go to some space and not be allowed to ask questions, that's a problem. And here's the thing, they don't need to have answers. I think that's what they keep forgetting. You could just say, I don't know. I
Yep.
just believe, and maybe I'll go find out, the answers to my questions. But if you don't know, that's okay too. But when you're being chastised for not like being able to ask questions, that's a problem. So that would be my first indicator of like doing that. Um, and then when you start to have these critical thought processes, you'll notice your God intelligence opens back up, which is your crown chakra, right?
Yes.
And your third eye, which is your intuition,
Mhm.
and you will start to get pointed in the right steps. Because the challenging part about a lot of these traditions and practices and religions that exist is that a lot of our people, um, they are oral traditions, and
Mhm.
so it's kind of a if you know, you know kind of thing. And I know that's difficult when we're trying to figure out who we are. I used to hate that, but now I understand like why things are the way that they are.
Mhm.
So, what I've noticed though is since I've opened myself up to other critical thought processes, that's when spirit was like, "Oh, you can handle this level of information. Let me introduce you to this person," right? And then I got introduced to this person, and then this person introduced me to a book, and then this book started introducing me to other books and to other
Yep.
thoughts, and then that's how I met my spiritual family, and that's where I'm at now.
Yep.
So, I think it's a mixture of opening yourself up and being a little woo woo in the sense that you believe
Yeah.
that if you change your mind, things will start to be attracted to you. But I know it's difficult because, again, like I said, it's oral tradition. So if you know, you know, kind of deal.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
But the thing is, though, that I think that picking up on what you were just talking about, how sort of one thing leads to another, your um, curiosity will take you on a journey.
It will.
So that book that you were reading about the Great Migration, that could have had something in it that led you somewhere else. So I believe that we have within the higher power within us. And so it knows what it's doing. It knows that, okay, all I have to do is show her this book and that's going to open up the path, you know.
Mm.
So all we have to do is remain curious and keep following our intuition, following the breadcrumbs. Um, because I believe that we're all divinely guided. You
Yes.
know, yeah, I mean that thing about asking questions is key. I asked a lot of questions when I was I was only exposed to one religion, and that was Christianity.
Mhm.
And I had questions from the very beginning, and I asked them constantly, and I was told, stop asking questions. Just go and, sit down and be quiet, read your Bible. But I was reading my Bible, it was making me ask questions. But because I was a very compliant child, I did what I was told.
Yeah.
And I mean, I can't really fault her now, that little girl. But knowing what I know now, I would have continued to ask questions and I would have done my own research.
Yeah.
But I was led to believe that I was being disrespectful and that anything that I needed, was right there. And I'm like, but the questions that I have are about what I'm reading
I know.
in said Bible. So it's really important that each of us, as you said, access our God intelligence and really think about the fact if you are asking a spiritual leader questions and they are rebuffing your questions, it's one thing to say, I don't know. Goodness gracious, I don't know where Cain's wife came from. If Adam and Eve and Cain and Abel were the first four humans, how did Cain find a wife that wasn't related to him? That's a logical question. So instead of saying, well, let's go do some research and find out, but you're being scolded and told, don't ask that question. There's a
Yeah.
problem there. So
Well,
I
I
think,
mean, where that
yeah,
comes from too, like, we weren't really, again, history, we weren't allowed to question this religion that was being introduced to us, right?
right.
Like, that would get you some consequences, I would imagine.
Yeah.
So that again, so history is so important because we look at the patterns and the things that, like, even now when I have conversations with my grandmother, she'll even ask herself, like, "Where did that come from?" And I'm like,
Hmm.
"Well," you know,
You ask?
we have these conversations, about these. She's actually really such an open person, especially to be the age range that she is.
Hmm.
Wasn't always like that, but over time, like, I feel like a lot of them are starting to really, like, get to a point where a lot of us are questioning, and they had questions when they were younger, but they didn't get to ask them
Ask.
freely,
Yeah,
So, um, yeah, it all points back to this idea of safety, right? As
absolutely.
Black folks, in order to not suffer some of the consequences in the moment for those things.
Hmm.
But yeah, you should be able to ask questions, go find the answers. Um, yeah.
But I think finding the answers, searching and finding the answers. So for me, that was really liberating because I had been trained in a certain direction. And when I realized, you know what? I can do whatever I want. I can do whatever, I can read whatever I want, and I can investigate whatever I want. And it's so as soon as I let sort of shook off the metaphorical shackles of a religion that's very high control,
Mhm.
I was just like, I studied yoga, um, not the movements, but the philosophy, yoga philosophy. I did the self-realization fellowship thing, but um ultimately I came back around to Christianity. Um but still, because I wasn't finding satisfaction in what I was accessing, because I was still looking outside of myself. And so because I was in my that was in my mid to late 20s, because I was indoctrinated, born into and indoctrinated into Christianity. That was in my nervous system. The way that worked. It was in my so when
Mm.
I became disillusioned with the other things that I was looking at, I realized, oh, maybe I was doing all this to find out that this really is the only way. No, not true.
Mm.
Not true. But that's sort of what I sort of gave up on the search and just came back to what was familiar, even though I still had, like mental reservations about the doctrine of hell, salvation. I just wrote about this the other day, the fact that every time there was an altar call, I wanted to run up to the altar and invite Jesus into my heart again because I didn't feel saved enough. right? Because
Mm.
hell was such a scary hanging over my head. I thought, oh, let me just go and invite Jesus into my heart one more time, just to make super, super, super sure. And I would go to the altar and I would cry and they'd pray over me. And then, my mother would say, sweetie, you don't have to go to the altar every time.
But that's what it feels like.
She said, you've been baptized and you've been saved. You don't need to keep going to the altar. And I said, I couldn't articulate um what it was. But also the thing is, I mean, an altar call. Some of those ministers, it's very powerful, because I would sit there and he would be like, in your heart there's and it's like they managed to find like that place within you where you feel inadequate, uh where at least for me, and I would just be like, "Oh, let me just go up there. Let me just go up there because, Jesus will save me." Eh, so my whole childhood is me going to the altar.
Oh my gosh. I
I need to get
yeah.
saved one more time. Like, if I get saved one more time, then that will be the time. That'll be good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the fear based. So I think
Yeah.
again, for those who are listening and hearing us talk, like it's not Christianity itself.
Yeah.
It's the fear-based aspects
Yes.
that have been perpetuated by people, you
Yeah.
know? Um, because yeah, that was always my worst fear is getting like when I first when I first moved here to Texas, I met this woman and, so I went with her to her church, for New Year's Eve, and it's a smaller church, and now mind you, I had been baptized Catholic as an adult, before I got married back then. I'm not married anymore, but, so I'm used to now I was used to at that point, like, more quieter services, more
Uh-oh.
I mean, I love the, like, I love me a good service, but I was used to or, like, being accustomed more to, like, a quiet mass, like, you
Mhm.
know when to stand, you know when to
Mhm.
sit, you know when to go up and get communion, like,
Yep.
and I was in this little small black church, and I'm sitting there and, everything's good, so somebody comes in the door, and so I thought the pastor was talking to the woman that come in the door, and he was like, "Hey, little sister, how you doing? Thank you for joining us at church." And I was like, just sitting there, I'm at church, and then he says it again, and I started to realize, I was like, "I think he's talking to me." And he's like, "You, over there, in the silver in the silver shirt." And I was like, "Oh god, he's talking to me." And he started
Called
saying all
out.
this other stuff. Called out, yeah. And he started saying all this other stuff. I was like, "Oh, I don't wanna be here anymore." But yeah, it's just sometimes the fear-based stuff and,
Yeah.
the message just kinda continued on from there, and I was like, "Oh, I know what I'm about to get into today,"
Yep.
but it's not Christianity itself, it's the fear-based aspects, and
Yep.
again but we go back to history, and this is why I think it's so important,
Yep.
is that was how we controlled people, you know?
Yes.
And I wanna ask you a question about this
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
I'm really curious because so my thought process, right, is that everybody has their path to God, it's just what door they decide to come through, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And it seems very arrogant to me to think that there's only one way to get to God when you think about the expansiveness of God and you think about where all people would have to be in the world, the corners of the world to get to God,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So through your studies, right? Because I know you said
Mhm.
you studied a lot of different
Yep.
things.
Yep.
How did you kind of wrap How did you start to hold? Because I feel like this is where people struggle, and this is why
Mhm.
I'm asking this. How did you start to hold what might feel like competing truths and competing thoughts in your mind at once?
Beautiful question. Beautiful question. So, it is my understanding that there are many paths up the mountain, right? So if you think, and I have to make the distinction that I don't, um, I make a distinction between the creator of the universe, like source, spirit, whatever,
Yes.
that there's one, and then the God of Christianity.
Mhm.
So the Bible, the God of the Bible, there's actually several gods of the Bible, right? If you read the Bible at all, you understand that the God of the Old Testament, the gods, because there's more than one in the Old Testament, and the God of the New Testament, they're different people. I mean, they're different. They're different. So when I say the mountain being the God, the creator of the universe, the one power that created all things, the one power that lives within each of us, there's many paths up that mountain. You can go the Catholic way. You talked about, I attended Catholic school.
Mhm.
So Catholic Mass is beautiful. It's clean. It's orderly. It's like, it's very sacred. Then on Sundays, I attended an AME church where the literal floor would shake because when the choir got going and people got stomping, the room was alive with the energy of worship and movement. Like, or you could be a Buddhist and you can sit and it's like, so because as you said, the diversity, not just the diversity and vastness of the creator, but the creator created a diverse kinds of people. That's
Mhm.
the question I asked as a 6-year-old. I thought, so if I were a little tiny girl in China and I was never exposed to Jesus Christ, does that mean why would God create me if I was going to burn in hell just because I didn't name him as my Lord and Savior and get baptized and all that? And they said, oh, well, that's why we have missionaries,
Mhm.
which is we're not going down that road. But so the way I sort of resolve that is that the mountain is there. You either find your path up it, or you don't, because there are people who are actually absolutely spiritual, religious. They just live their happy lives, and they don't have any of these deep. They would see this live and go, "Oh, I don't want to hear that," and scroll on. Right, but there are some of us. I always say that we have a God-sized void within us, and it's the only thing that's going to fill that void. We try to fill it with food. We try to fill it with sex. We try to fill it with um those are my two favorite ones. Those are my two favorite ones. You try, it doesn't work, but it's fun trying, right?
Yes.
Um, so you can try to fill that void with those things,
Mhm.
but God's still waiting, right?
Mm.
So there's many paths up the mountain. You get to pick because God also, I believe, the Creator gave us free will, so we can either choose to pursue a connection with Him, with it, not Him. It's not a Him, it, or not. But hell is invented. The Christians invented the doctrine of hell, like they invented lots of things, right? So you, as a sovereign human being, you get to pick. You get to pick. And if you want to study African spiritual religion, I mean African traditional religions, like because there's 54 countries, you get to pick whatever. I mean, I think it makes sense to sort of look at your lineage. If you did like an ancestry thing, look at your lineage and see where did your people come from. For me, that would be difficult because I have 32 ethnicities. So that would be kind of hard. But, look at where did your ancestors come from? If a lot of your DNA comes from Mali, you might sort of consider like what are they into in Mali or whatever, wherever your heart leads.
Mhm.
But I do not believe that there's only one way. I believe that there are many paths, and we as sovereign humans get to pick the path.
Mhm. Mm. We do. We really do. You said
Or
those were
not
your
pick a
favorite ones.
or not pick a path. Or you know,
Well, I don't know. I feel like even when you're not picking a path, you're picking a path, if that makes sense.
exactly. Yeah,
Like I know like even if you believe in nature, you still I'm just
that's the path.
saying.
Yeah.
Just you're still connecting with
Paganism you know, is a legit,
yeah.
it's I look at it as worshiping is a strong word, but worshiping the created thing, or you can worship the creator, right?
Mhm.
Um, I, but pagan, the only thing pagan means is it just means that it's not Christianity, Islam. It's not an organized religion. Pagans tend to be earth based,
Mhm.
nature, they find their spirituality in nature. So it's
Mhm.
not any pagan is a sort of a catch-all phrase for lots of things. I mean, I often think of when I hear the word pagan, I think of a white woman in a flowy dress with long hair in the woods or in a field picking flowers, like, but it can be lots of things.
It can be.
So, yep.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, I think that was a really good, example, and somebody in the chat said, "If we think of everyone as people, then we don't have problem."
exactly.
It's so
Carl says
simple.
that. Yep. Yeah.
It's so simple. It's so simple.
Yep. And not try to control each other. I mean, I think a lot of the purpose of religion is control. I think left to our own devices, human beings tend to be a bit hedonistic.
Mhm.
And when Christianity became a Roman thing, um, they really needed to control the people. And
Mm.
so codifying, the canon, which is choosing which books would go in and which books would not go into the Bible, and sort of making as mainstream as possible Christian form of Christianity and making it the official Roman religion was to control. Like you had to control um, inheritance. When someone dies and they pass their property down, if they're not married, then so marriage is part of that to control how things are inherited, and it's less messy, right? If you have one man, one woman, and they get married and they have children, if everybody does that, it's less messy, but it's also super controlly,
Mhm.
um, which we don't need. So
Yeah.
anyway, I'm
Hmm.
being mindful of the time, and I want to honor your time. So
Oh,
these,
I'm here. It's Saturday, so if you
yep,
have more
yeah, same,
questions,
same,
if
same.
you want to stay for another hour,
Yep,
I am
okay,
here.
very, very good.
I've
So
enjoyed this conversation,
I'm
so
enjoyed this conversation too. This is wonderful. So what is your um I don't know, what is your take then on, because I know you do a lot of like, I don't know if you do astrology. I've seen tarot in your feed. Um what is your sort of take on the relationship between things like tarot and astrology and magic? Like how does that fit in sort of like with your spiritual um approach?
yeah. Well, I've kind of learned to, like, take things that I like, the things that I take the best and leave the rest. That's,
Yes.
like, kinda my motto,
Mhm.
And so, like, even still, like, in the Bible, for instance, like, my favorite story to this day, my favorite story is Job. I love me some Job.
The oldest book, Job is
Oh,
the oldest.
okay.
Yep.
That I did not know.
Mhm.
Yeah, I love me some Job because I feel like Job to me exemplifies, like, the shadow and the light when it comes to spirituality, comes to religion. Job to me signifies integration at its finest, Like, seeing the challenges as something that God presented and something to still be, like, aware of and grateful for, and realizing that there's more to it than just this challenge in this moment?
Mhm. Mhm.
So, Job is one of my favorites, but like, I still pull things from the Bible. I still sometimes go to a Catholic mass even though,
Mhm.
I'm not practicing Catholic. Um, but tarot and astrology actually go hand in hand the more that you dig.
Mhm.
So I started with astrology, but I would not call myself an astrologer.
Yep.
So I'm really careful about that
Yep.
because I'm not about to sit here calculating folks like full on birth charts. I might talk about your rising moon and your
Yep.
sun and
Yep.
your Chiron placement because that's very important
Yep.
in the aspect of things. So I'm not an astrologer. But I do like to use astrology and tarot together because when
Yep.
you start to learn the tarot, you'll know that there's a group of cards within the tarot called the Major Arcana, which we've been focusing on this year anyway. And the Major Arcana kind of takes you through what is called the Fool's Journey.
Mhm.
And so that's where the Fool is encountering all of these different life themes and lessons. And so I like the tarot because I feel like it puts some words and some actions and some like key lessons um to your human experiences, because the human experience is really hard sometimes, and it walks through all of those steps and kind of explains those steps. So when you're doing a reading or you're sitting down and looking at the tarot and those themes come in, you can, have some words to put to what your experience is at that
Mhm.
time, right? So that's where tarot definitely comes in for me. And then each major arcana card and each card in the tarot in general is associated with a specific astrological
Yeah.
sign, specific planet, specific chakra. And I'm obsessed with the chakras, by the way. And so I learned, and I have to go find that book. It's sitting in my room, but there's one African traditional religion that maps the specific deities to those chakras. And I thought that was really interesting. And then you see the chakras pop up in the tarot. So naturally, I believe that there is some keys to body work and to chakra work across religions, right? And it's just across your human experience.
Yeah.
But I like the tarot and have a deck that pulls in the chakras as well. So it pulls in the body. So that's where my link is, like the tarot, chakras, astrology, they all come together and they pull those links in, right?
I love that. I love
Mhm.
that. Kabbalah also has, um there's a connection between Kabbalah and the chakras and the major
Mhm.
arcana. So there's a whole, um I love I love tarot mainly I guess it because I was fascinated by it, but then
Mhm.
repelled by it because
Oh,
told that it was evil, right?
well, yeah.
So
It's demonic.
it was
You're
it was
you're
it was
telling the
calling
future.
to me, and I was like, "No, no, no, no. It's evil." And, first of all, the Bible is full of divination. The Bible is full of magic, right? But whenever
Yes.
somebody explained to me how tarot works and all that, and that, no, you can be a Christian and still, study, I was like, "Oh,"
Oh, thank God.
I was so liberated. But, yeah, it's just, but one thing that I learned, I am also a soul collage facilitator. And one thing we learned in our soul collage training, facilitator training, was about how the subconscious mind communicates to us in images,
Mm.
and that the tarot itself doesn't have any power. The power is within us. And so when we're doing a reading, or if someone's doing a reading for you and they're tapping into your energy to do that reading, the power comes from ourselves. And because human beings have come up with those images over such a long period of time, it's kind of like, once the Bible, the Christian Bible, was sort of pulled together in a narrow sort of form, our reading of it and holding it as sacred is what makes it sacred, right?
Mhm.
Because if you think of all the millions of people who are reading those same words and attributing those words, it's like, so the power is coming from us. We are infusing those cards. Those cards tap into our energy field.
Mhm.
I went to I was at a retreat, and these ladies, um, it was at Omega, and so we were in a cabin, which is kinda like a dorm. There was, like, rooms,
Yeah.
and then we all had a shared bathroom. So, everyone opened their doors, and there was, like, wine, and we were, like, going from room to room and just having, like, a little girls'
Oh.
pajama party. And I walked into a room, and there was these women sitting on the bed, and they were peeling the cellophane off of a tarot deck,
Oh, they're opening it up. Okay.
brand new. So they just bought it at the bookstore, and they're ripping and they just started flipping it around, and some of them was like, and I was like, "Wait, wait, 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 hang on a second." And I started telling I said, "First of all, you have to clear a deck. You can't just rip the cellophane off and start using it." And she had handed it to the girl who was sitting, they're both sitting crisscross applesauce on the bed.
Mhm.
And she handed it, I was like, "First of all, and you can't let somebody else handle I mean," they said, "Oh, will you read for us? Looks like you know what you're talking about." And I'm like, I said, "No." I'm going to read for you, but I'm going to tell you, first of all, you can't go to the bookstore and buy a tarot deck and then whip it out and start, you know, reading it. You have to, clear it and then, sort of get to know that deck and all that before you start. It was quite hilarious. They were just going to open it up and like do a reading
Mhm.
right then and there. It was hilarious. But yeah, so it's the power comes from us.
It does. That's funny. Yeah, you can cleanse your tarot decks in the moonlight, you
Yep.
know? You
Hmm.
can sometimes it depends on the deck, like how I do it,
Yeah.
but you can put your cards out on your sometimes I put them on my altar,
Hmm.
and then I'll put like
Yeah.
my stones, my gemstones with them and
Yep.
let them do their thing. But yeah, you got to spend some time with your deck,
Yep.
unless you made the deck yourself
Well, of course. Yeah.
because then
Yeah.
it's
It's
like I
all
was
infused. It's all infused.
yeah, when
Yeah.
I made my deck, I was like, "Ooh, okay." Like, it worked right away. I was like, "Wow, this is juicy," you know?
Yeah. I'm creating one right now. It's not a tarot deck, it's an oracle deck.
Yeah.
And I'm using the characters in the Bible.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
because they're excuse me, just as you
Mm,
said, there's correspondences between the major arcana and the chakras.
yes.
There are correspondences between um the 12, because the 12 is an important number in the Bible, the 12 and the zodiac.
Mm.
And so
Oh,
I heard that. And so I was like looking around, like how would I find that out? So I started doing a little bit of research and I really couldn't find, so I sort of let that go. But I
yeah.
didn't want to make the deck and then be wrong. Do you know what I mean? Like that was sort of what,
Yeah.
then I was listening to a podcast
Mhm.
and this person gave me the answer
Mm.
that I never could have. I shouldn't say never. I was led to listen to that podcast and they gave the answer. And the answer is in the painting, the painting that's in, not the Sistine Chapel, but there's a chapel in I don't know if it's in Rome, but it's in Italy, where the Last Supper
Mm.
is. It's on the back wall of the painting, and each of the disciples is in that picture in different poses, and this person um created superimposed which zodiac sign each of the apostles was representing.
Mm.
I was like, what?
You got that from listening to a podcast? Come on.
So I listened to the podcast
Wow.
and then I went and did the research. I went and did.
Wow.
So if you look,
Wow.
you can Google it now. It's, I think I found it on YouTube. Um, what is the connection between um, the Last Supper painting and the zodiac, and all of their signs are right there. So I just did a little shorthand, took it down. So now my cards that represent the apostles, and they're round cards that I'm making in my deck, are all going to be properly keyed to their the signs that they represent. So
Oh,
I
I
mean that
can't
was
wait
just
to get
like
that
heaven.
oracle. Wow.
If heaven is up there, it was heaven sent. Heaven's not up there, heaven is in here. But it's like I had that question in my mind, and that podcast episode completely answered that question.
Wow. I can't
So
wait to get that oracle deck. Are you
yeah,
gonna sell it too, right?
yeah, yeah,
Oh, okay,
yeah.
good.
So I
'Cause
have
yeah.
Old Testament characters
Wow.
and New Testament characters, but for the New Testament, because I learned that there's a school of biblical scholarship called myth something, where they basically are saying that a lot of the Bible text is based on myth.
Mm.
Um, so somebody just in an offhand comment said, "Oh, well, you can map the 12 apostles to the zodiac," and
Mm.
they were talking about how a lot of ancient um, synagogues, they have found the zodiac in mosaic on the floors.
Mhm.
So, because there's a lot of correspondences
Wow.
between stuff in the Bible and the zodiac. So yeah, so I'm creating a deck
Yeah.
for that, and so yeah,
That's really cool.
yeah.
This is like so I have been kind of exploring the idea of for a few months now. I've been sitting on it since the end of 2025. But I actually think I really do I've been wanting to go and get a second like degree in divinity, you know? And so but I was trying to think about what concentrations and what programs would, I would want to do.
Hmm.
But this is like making me go, oh yeah, I definitely want to this
Oh, I definitely
conversation.
do. Yeah, I definitely
Yeah.
do too. I want to get my doctoral degree in. I was going to say theology, but probably it'll be in metaphysics.
Mm,
Um,
mhm.
because yeah, I mean, I've already got ideas about because religion, spirituality, all of that fascinates me,
Yeah.
and it's my special interest. So,
Yeah.
um, I definitely, if I were to go back and get my doctoral degree, it would be in some kind of not mythology, mysticism, metaphysics, because I want to get like underneath. Because
Yeah.
theology is really the study of um I think it's like the study of like religions. And I want to study spirituality. I want to get beneath that, beneath the dogma and the doctrine and the rules and the scripture and just really study like the metaphysics of things.
Mhm. That makes sense.
Yeah.
That would be so cool. What are your other degrees in, if you don't mind?
English literature.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. And then I have I'm ordained minister. So, yeah.
Rev Ev, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
What type of or is there a type of, church that you're ordained to?
Yes, I'm a minister of spiritual consciousness.
Okay.
So it is a not a Christian, it's a new thought
Mhm.
slash non-denominational ordination. So yeah.
Okay.
We
Wow.
I did study the Bible in seminary. We did metaphysical Bible interpretation.
Mm.
So it's looking at the Bible as a reflection of our own consciousness and looking so there is a unity, which is another new thought denomination.
Yeah.
Um has a metaphysical Bible dictionary. And so it takes words from the Bible and then gives you a metaphysical definition. Like,
Hmm.
Bethlehem means bread, and so he mapped. Why can't I think of his name right now? Mapped all of these words in the Bible, and it's like this big. I would lug this book to class. But yeah, we took Bible stories and we picked them apart and interpreted them metaphysically. And then
Mm.
sort of at the end, we did a thing on the Sermon on the Mount, which is fascinating. So it's things like that that just really get me
Yeah.
going. I want to just,
Yes. Well, because it's so
yeah,
fascinating. Like, one of
yeah,
my biggest things is, like, understanding why things are the way they are, why people are
exactly.
the way that they are, how things came to be. So I feel like I would want it to be divinity, but like maybe a cross between some history, right? But also some psychology. So I don't know. I've been sitting with it and I might have to make up the program and pull courses for myself from
There you
different
go.
places too. So I was thinking about that. I was like, how would I? Yeah, because there's so many aspects that I want to specifically study that might not be all in one program, you know?
You'd have to put together your own committee.
Yeah.
You'd have to find people. Well, first you'd have to find the right institution that would let you do that. I mean,
Mhm.
I don't let you. I mean, I think that doesn't sound like an unreasonable thing, but
It would be
you'd
like
have to find.
interdisciplinary or something
Yeah.
like that, I think is what it's
Hmm.
called when you put it together yourself or something like
Yeah.
that. I
Yep.
forget. Mhm.
Yeah. So yeah,
I
cool.
know. Another 2026 project added to the list, like, I don't have enough projects.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's been on
So
my mind for a while now, so I don't know.
yep.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. Well, I don't know. This was just lovely. Um,
Yes.
yeah, I really enjoyed talking to you,
Same.
and so glad. Thank you to everyone who has hung in there with us in this sort of marathon session. But yeah, beautiful, beautiful conversation. So I have, if there's something else, do you have anything coming up that you want to share about?
Yeah, so, I have this, 8-week challenge that I've been writing.
Mhm.
It's called Clocking In Without Clocking Out Spiritually, because
Wow.
I started a new role last or no, 2 weeks ago at this point, and when I came back into the workforce, like, I'm in a great place. I know God lined this up for me, but it started to make me think about, all the things that we may need when going back into the workforce, you know? And, from a spiritual aspect, from a practical aspect. So, kind of, cultivating certain motivations and things and reasons why you're even working.
Mhm.
From practices on nervous system practices around boundaries with work, around, so we cover a multitude of things in this challenge. So, the wait list is open. You can go to it by going to themediocreblackwoman.com/clock in, and that's how you can sign up for the wait list. And so
Okay.
as things start to come out, um, you'll be informed if you're on the wait list. So when our pre-sale launches in February, you'll be informed. When we finally go fully live, you'll be informed. So we're gonna do this for 8 weeks, and yeah, we're gonna clock in without clocking out.
Oh, I love that. I
Yeah.
love that. So you're sort of balancing your spiritual life um with your work life. I love that.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I've been fortunate to where the work that I am doing now, at work and outside of work are both in service to my greater purpose and mission and who I
Wonderful.
am as a person. So, I've been really fortunate in that. But I know that, again, that's not the experience for everyone. So it's like, how do we, still clock in without clocking out? How do we still be ourselves and show up and
Yeah.
maintain the progress that we've made before, going back into the workforce? So, yeah.
Love that. Love that.
Mhm.
Um, all right. So I have a final question for
Yes.
you. If you were given a billboard in Times Square where you could share your message with the world, what would it say?
I would say love.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Very
'Cause
simple. I love
that's
that.
what it points back to. That's
Simple
what
and
it points
easy.
back to. Yeah. Mhm.
Wonderful. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me. And thank you for everyone who's hung on for this podcast, for this live stream. And please go and follow Empress Theodora and her beautiful Mediocre Woman publication on Substack. And yeah, so thanks for joining. And I will see you next time. I'll be back again next Wednesday. And yeah, have a lovely day, rest of your day, and be safe in this crazy weather. All right,
Thank you for
take care.
having me. Bye.